what is the end goal of all this? Like to get rich, to make a living doing this, or
Well, welcome to the Indigenous Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today I have Jeff Atencio with me from Rainstorm Consulting. And I'll let you introduce yourself, Jeff, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Okay, well, like you said, I'm Jeff Atencio. I'm from Ohkay Owingeh Pueblo. I currently am living here in Albuquerque on the west side. And I've been in I came back to New Mexico some years back, but I was in the military for a while, so I left and came back. And I also was born in San Jose, California. So then that's was another adventure, I guess.
Yeah. So how old were you when you came back from
Let's see.
California?
Mom and dad moved us back. I think I was about 10 years old. I remember I was in the fifth grade, I think, fourth or fifth grade. But yeah, that was a whole nother experience. Oh my goodness, coming out of San Jose, they had nice yards, playgrounds, and everything. They stuck me on the reservation, and it was all dirt and ditches and grass and horses and all kind of livestock and
Yeah.
the and then right into a little one room adobe home that didn't have any electricity in it, and yeah, it was interesting.
A little bit of a culture shock.
Oh,
Maybe.
definitely. Holy cow.
Well, thank you for your service as well. I know you
Thank you.
mentioned you were in the military. What branch did
I was
you
in the
serve?
Navy. I
Okay.
was two tours. I was on the USS Independence and the USS Ranger. I was in there. I'm what they call carrier intelligence.
So what led you to starting a business? Because I know you kind of have a very diverse background.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if you can kind of walk us through your journey a little bit to what brought you to your business now, which is Rainstorm Consulting.
It's kind of strange because I was thinking about it over the weekend. I was doing some work, and it started at a young age. I always wanted to have my own business. I wanted to run something or do something, entrepreneur, or have a business of some sort. And I remember early on, I was in, I think, a junior high, and I got involved with this thing called Junior Salesperson of America or something like that, when you went around and you sold cards, all occasion cards, Christmas cards in boxes, and you'd sell them to people, and you get a return or you get credit, and then you can buy certain stuff within a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hustling and getting all kinds. I was buying, a canteen and a sleeping bag and all kind of stuff because at that time I thought I was going to be I think I wanted to be a park ranger or something like that. So I was outfitting myself with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got the ability to talk to people and really, converse with them and help them to find a product. So that was nice. And later on, throughout that, school and everything, and started working in tribal government for a while and did various jobs, cut weeds during the summer, was a EMT, a fireman, a CHR, did some stuff with their environment department, helped Ohkay Owingeh to establish their environmental rules and regulations for the Pueblo. Then got into housing, and what else did I get into? Then I had, for a while there, I helped to manage an agricultural cooperative there in San Juan Pueblo. It's called Pueblo Harvest Foods was the brand name of the products we produce. We were farming about 100 acres. We had a processing facility. We had a bunch of the landowners in Ohkay Owingeh come together and sign, or we able to lease their land and farm it, and then process the product into packaged goods. And we were at different locations throughout the state and the local area. And after that, went into the city of Santa Fe, did systems and programming there. and shortly after that went to as a tribal administrator at Tesuque Pueblo, and I think that's where it really started to sink in as far as what I was being made aware of, being in various meetings with other tribal leadership, with state offices, and just getting an overall sense of the enormous need that the tribal communities have. And I was been looking at, how can I really help them? I said, I really liked helping out Tesuque Pueblo with their 1 megawatt solar array, and they're building their infrastructure, helping them to do a travel center. They established, I think it was a class 2 gaming there. And we did a lot of stuff there, but I was thinking, how can I do this for other tribes? How can I be, provide this service and knowledge? And then an opportunity came to me. Another consultant really liked my work, my leadership, my insight, and he said, "Hey, why don't we team up and be a consulting firm, and let's help out the tribes." I was very hesitant because I had that business way back when. I had another business I was doing, consulting and contracts with technology, um, basic desktop support and networking and stuff like that. It wasn't all that big, but he kept encouraging me, and he says, "We got it. We can do this." He was very optimistic, and so I said, "Okay." 2019, I jumped ship from Tesuque Pueblo. In 2020, I started up my consulting and started up as a sole proprietorship, and I'm still a sole proprietorship. It leaves me the ability to contract with other consultants and other agencies, and it's kind of freeing that way. So ever since then, now I'm sitting here with you.
Yeah. So kind of what do you do with Rainstorm Consulting? I know you said you help tribes, but
Mhm.
like what exactly is your business? Like what type of consulting work?
Originally, I started out wanting to consult just on community solar development. That's where my emphasis was. That's what drove me out to start my business. Really opportune time for the tribes to do that with the state's Community Solar Act coming online, and if the tribes really do it correctly, they can really help themselves out, community financially, and just having a good income source, if you will, helping out the environment, all those kind of nice things that come into play with that. But now I find myself being looked or asking about housing and agriculture, two other ones that are really coming into play, especially the agriculture side. Housing, there's always a need. I sit with a CDFI board that's called Native Community Capital, and they're set up basically to help with enterprise development and other housing and stuff like that way. So that's a good.
So, the types of organizations that you'd consult with would be mainly tribes, or like what other types of organizations would
Right
you
now,
work
it's with tribes. The agriculture side right now, believe it or not, is with the individual tribal farmers right now. I'm helping out 5 different farmers from, I think it's like 4 different pueblos, and bringing financial resources to them, as well as technical resources. And technical resources, not only just how to grow product and how to lay out their fields and maybe some other stuff, but then also setting them up with their own business, their financials, a business plan, all these other things that they may not think of, or that maybe not have the expertise in. So I help them look at that, even setting themselves up as an LLC or sole proprietorship, and the advantages, disadvantages. So I come in and I explain to them, and I'm able to do that through New Mexico Community Capital. I have a contract with them to go out into their grant recipients and help them with those particular things.
So as you've been like building your business and also helping others build their businesses, what are some challenges or barriers you've faced, like either with your own business or that you've kind of seen with other people's businesses?
Through my own business, I've found that the biggest hurdle is really having a constant source of revenue. One of the bigger contracts I had a while back, it went away. So after that, I was tempted to get additional customers, more contract, but it was so hard because the Pueblos were all closed up at that time. So I couldn't get in to really promote myself and the services I had. So I had like a whole year of just waiting around. And during that time is when that other contract kind of dried up. So I was left without anything. And I had to be resourceful into figuring out what other, what am I capable of doing? Don't just sit there, do something, think of, realize your resources is what I had to do. And I had to go back through my repertoire of what I've done in the past and look for opportunities and just keep going and be vigilant and be, determined. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And for the other ones that are coming up, like the farmers and some of the other businesses, I've noticed that it's startup capital. It's startup capital and probably some planning, understanding finances and budgeting and how all of that is important to set up a business, because once you get to a certain point, you're going to start hitting the banks or even during some of the grant process, they ask you, do you have a budget? Do you know how much money you're bringing in? Do you know your customer base? How much is your cost of goods? So that kind of basic information is needed. And I think sometimes the small entrepreneur doesn't understand the value of doing that, so they don't really put the work into it or even trying to understand it. I'm not saying they have to be an accountant, they don't have to be a bookkeeper, but they have to have some simple basic knowledge of how money goes from the bank and goes out, and you come back and you can have a balance at the end of the month, basically.
And who to seek out when you need help as well is probably good to know.
And that's something that I've noticed. There is a lot of help out there. But it's really trying to get that resource to the entrepreneur, which I'm finding it's not hard, but it's like you have to go out and hunt in the weeds, if you will, and scare them out and say, oh, there you are. I can help you, or you just happen to stumble on them when you're, like, say, at a feast. And you run into somebody and you're talking to them and you're like, oh, you know what? I got some stuff that you can, look at. Here's a resource. Have you thought about this? So it's really almost word of mouth, which is, okay. But I think there should be a better way to reach out to the tribes and the entrepreneurs that are sitting at home doing whatever it is that they're doing or wanting to do. How do we do this? And it's like, well, there is a way you can do it. There is options, there is opportunity.
I think that's where like positions like our tribal liaisons help, because they're out there, they know who has a business, or they're out there networking in their communities, to be able to identify those. And you serve kind of similar role as well.
Yes, I do. I get out there and I talk. I try to stay in contact with tribal leadership, the governors, the chairmen, and the presidents, to let them know, that I'm available. Let them and just talk to them and help them if they have a question. I've been thinking about this. What do you think? And I'll give them, what I know, or I'll say, let me look into that a little bit more. I know somebody who has that info, and I'll get back to you on that. So it's just being a resource out there for the community as a whole, talking to them, they may talk about, you know, geothermal, which is I'm working with another company on geothermal. There's another one on broadband, so I can help them out with that. So it's just a matter of listening, identifying what the need is, and then looking at, okay, can I do that, or is that something that I can get the information for them? And I'm going back to the entrepreneurs in the Pueblos. I was thinking about that. I think there really needs to be something like, I know that they do this for Head Start. They have something like a child find, and I guess the Head Start goes out there, sets up a date and time that says, okay, come over here if you want to have your child into Head Start. This is what you can do. This is what you need. Why doesn't something like that happen with entrepreneurs in the Pueblo? Like say, okay, all you artists or all you basket makers or all you people that want to make fry bread as a whatever it is that they want to do as a business, and then have people set up there to be able to answer their questions or help them think through it, so that they're just not lost, because there has to be an economy within the tribal community. And if you can get $1 to circulate at least 3 times within the community, you're doing well. And I can see that the bit like farming, the ones I'm working with, one of them works with the Fresh RX program with the state, and he's done very well with it. He's been able to feed about 330 individual tribal households for 16 weeks. He was able to, use that as his main source of income, provide some quality food to the tribal people. They all loved it. It was great stuff. So, certain things like that, where you can bring that type of information to an entrepreneur to say, hey, there is a way you can do it. You can keep your lights on. You can put gas in your vehicle. You can go on your vacations. But this is what you need to do in order to get there. And that would be fabulous if you could do that. And that's something I would like to see happen.
Yeah, we're actually kind of starting to host, so we call them community and entrepreneur engagement events.
Oh, nice.
So our first one was in Santa Clara, and so we went there and advertised it to only the people in the Pueblo. And we had a pretty good turnout, and we're having another one on Thursday of this week. And we invited New Mexico Community Capital to attend, and AIBE.
Oh, good, yes.
The Small Business Development Center. That way there's people there who those entrepreneurs can tap into if they need help with certain things. So we're going to try to host more of those events. But we want to do them, instead of just a big general this is for Native American owned businesses, we want to kind of make it more community and locally based, so that they can start tapping into the resources available to them, but also creating that entrepreneurial ecosystem and community within themselves and the tribe. So that's our first attempt. I think it could turn into something bigger, especially since now AIBE and NMCC will be at this next one. So we're hoping to do it at other pueblos as well.
Well, what is that one called? SBCA?
SBDC.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be there.
They'll be there?
Well.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So, but I think that's a really good idea. I think it's important because you're right. There's a lot of resources, but people are either just not aware, or it's just so many resources that they're like, where do I even start?
Yeah, where do I start? And I think that's one of the things I'm noticing about some of these businesses is that, where do we start? What is it that I need to do? I have the idea. I can see what it is. I want to move it forward. How do I do that? And I think that would be perfect if we can help them do that.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about your experience working with tribes, because I think that's very unique and a very important skill to have.
It is unique, and it is a skill that is developed over years. From what I've seen and from my other counterparts and just the individuals I come across, a it's a skill you should just keep developing. But it's really talking to them on a one-on-one basis. And I know a lot of the individuals and I know the people out there are going to say, "Wow, how did that happen?" Well, for me. It started because I played baseball with a lot of the tribal leaders, and that was a big community event. It goes on throughout the northern Pueblos, the southern Pueblos, and then at a certain time of the year, they all come together for a championship game. So you get to know a lot of the different individuals and families, and that's another one, family dynamics. I mean, you get married into a pueblo or into a nation or a tribe, and next thing you know all kind of people. So that network in itself is pretty special and pretty unique in that, you if you really use your native network well, you can get to know people. But it's really listening to the tribal leadership is what I've heard, what I've come across, is to listen to them and not just hear them, but listen to them, and then get out into the community and talk to the senior citizen cook, to their CHR driver, to their person up at the gym, or just different individuals, and listen to them on what their perspective is, and what their need is, and what the tribal leadership is saying, and then hear what the other ones are saying, and then make that connection in your mind so that you can then help them to bring additional resources or realize a resource that they may have they're just not tapping into, and it's just sitting there, which sometimes happens. But it's for me, it was understanding community dynamics and how a community functions, and I was looking at that through a holistic lens. So I was privy to work with this organization, Holistic Management. I did that for 5 years, and we implemented that at Ohkay Owingeh, and it really helped the leadership and some of the people at that time to look at the community holistically. And what is it that we need to do to move our community forward, move objectives forward, you know, we have an idea and a vision, and how do we get there holistically? And that process was very easy for the community to understand, because it's an agricultural based management system. And we just put it all into agricultural terms, thoughts, process, growth, cycles, and everything. And they caught on how to do strategic planning very well. They understood. It was amazing at how well that they caught on. I was very happy about that. But that kind of lens is what I take to the Pueblos and the leadership when I'm talking to them. I'm not talking about strategic planning. I'm not talking about all of these financial stuff. I'm talking to them utilizing what they know and what they understand, which is usually agriculture and ranching. Some of them are artists, so you can throw that in there. So it's really understanding who's across the table from you. If it's baseball that we played together back when, then you start talking baseball. Or if you went fishing with them, or it's really just finding that common ground, so that you have something to build on and trust. That's the one key that I really noticed, is for them to trust you, and to show trust, and to be on time, and to deliver what you say you're going to do, and not be all uppity, if you will. Be humble, be respectful, and it goes a long ways, especially within the tribal government.
That relationship, it's like you need to establish that trust in that relationship versus like, let's just get down to business. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. No, you'll run into barriers that way, and I think that's something. If you're starting up a business within the tribal and and community, I think that's very important, that you aren't just there to sell something or provide a service, but utilize that service and that product to help the community. If you're a farmer and you sold all of this stuff and you delivered all the product, but you have extra, go ahead and give it out. Take it to the senior center, or give it to the school, or invite the school out to your farm, or reach out to other farmers to say, hey, I can, let's work together. What is it that you need? Or if it's a hairstylist, ask the kids, you guys need a haircut? Why don't you come on over? I'll give you a haircut or something. Little things like that within the community goes a long way. And I think just going back to how individuals that I've listened to in the past that have influenced me in my thought process and how I look at life, they always said, work for the community. Work for the community, help them out, because you never know, that person that you're helping out may be the one that can be a doctor or a lawyer, or bring some sort of technology back to the Pueblo, or they may come back as a teacher. Heck, we need a lot of teachers out there. It's, from what I'm hearing, if we can get teachers out there, that would be wonderful.
How do you think entrepreneurship and Native American and tribal entrepreneurs can help impact the community and the well-being of life on the reservation?
Well, I think entrepreneurship on the reservation is important, because it gives individuals another option to stay within the community and stay vibrant, to stay part of it. In the respect that maybe they are a plumber or an electrician, there's always homes that need to be built. You can work with them. You can start up a construction company similar to what San Felipe has. They have a wonderful construction company, and there's others out there. But it's really identifying a need, figuring out a way to address that need, and then reach out, to another entrepreneur. They may not be doing exactly what you are doing, but they're doing something, and they can help you, think it through. And then once you start talking about it, really identify what it is that you want to do within the community, be it, hair cutting, plumber, mechanic, all these, a lot of these things are going away. It's not being taught in school anymore, how to be a mechanic or a woodworker or something like that. We still need those occupations, and it's not all technology. It's not all online stuff. There are other things that can be done. And in some ways, I think the community, and I'm going to say life in general, we need to start really advocating for that and showing that those particular non-technical jobs are very important, and they are needed, and they are part of the community and life.
It's an ecosystem.
It's a total ecosystem.
All the different parts. We can't just have one. Everyone can't be in technology. We need those different working parts to make it a vibrant community. So I appreciate that. And one thing that I just want to comment on, because you were talking about it earlier, but just how I feel like every Native American entrepreneur who I've spoken with, they always have that social impact part to their company or to their idea. It's always this is my idea, and this is how it's going to help my community or make my community better. And I think that overall approach to entrepreneurship is something that is sometimes lacking, in the westernized way of doing business. And I think it's just an important lens and approach that I've noticed amongst like Native American entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. It is so true. It is. Well, it's part of the community. It's how we live. It's how we function. I mean, everything going back a millennial of years, it's all, you know, we had to do that to survive. We had to teach it, we had to live it, we had to make it happen, and then carry it on, and then do it all over again, just like a cycle, just like a rainforest. You got the whole cycle. You need it to function properly in order for it to thrive. So it's the same thing in business, the community, in any kind of community development or new project. It has to be looked at in a holistic manner. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you have an idea, you put it into the ground, it's going to grow. If it keeps growing, you need the sunlight, meaning finances, or you need to, grow it with some fertilizer, maybe some technical help. So you're looking at all the aspects of it and helping it to grow. But at the same time, you're providing that, I guess, that light, if you will, for the community, for other younger individuals. And I'm seeing that through a lot of these entrepreneurs, is that they bring in the youth. They're actively looking to the youth and bringing them in. They may not do the same job, but you're creating that desire, that energy for them to go on and become an accountant or become an architect or something, even technology, which I was in. But it creates that desire and that, like, wow, I can do this, and I think that's very important for the native youth. And that's one component that the farmers I'm working with, they've all have created a youth program, if you will. They've created some interests all the way up to UNM interns, all the way down to the local tribal school. So it's very important. I think, and one of my friends and I were talking about agriculture and how important it is to the basic needs of the community, meaning that you need to have good quality food, which will then have good quality mental health, physical health, spiritual health. It helps out the cultural aspect of the community. So once you start really looking at what you're doing, whatever it is, as an entrepreneur, and how that fits into the whole of the community, it makes it a lot easier. Then you're like, oh, that's what I'm doing. That's what my purpose is. Yeah.
You can start seeing where all the dots connect to, and like that ripple effect of impact that people can have just when they're living in their purpose,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, life seems to be a little brighter when you figure that
out. Yeah. So where can New Mexico as a whole, based on your experience, where do you think New Mexico as a whole could improve on making the path for Indigenous entrepreneurs easier or more accessible? Like, are there in your experience, anything that would have made your journey easier, or something that, organizations like UNM Rainforest, New Mexico Community Capital could do, or even like the state, if there's anything that you think would make the path easier?
I think the path, it's really that there's so much going through my mind when you're saying that. I'm thinking about housing, I'm thinking about broadband, I'm thinking about transportation, infrastructure, and all of these play directly into helping an entrepreneur start. Because if they're too busy trying to figure out where they're going to eat, where they're going to sleep, and how they're not going to be developing a business. They're not, they're too busy trying to make it to the next day. Right. So if the state and tribes could work collectively together, and maybe some nonprofits and some, banks and stuff, to really look at, because the tribes, they've done so many strategic plans. I mean, they gather dust on their shelves sometimes with, and they keep doing them. But once they do a strategic plan, I've noticed that it kind of stops there. They don't either have the capacity, the resources, or knowledge on how to move it forward as far as what that strategic plan is talking about. If that could be used and then dusted off and put into action, and it's just a living document, it's going to change. You're not going to do what it says in 5 years, because you're going to be totally different. Your population's going to grow, you have new assets, you have new opportunities. So it's just something to shoot for and go. Just move forward and do something. Just don't sit there wringing your hands. Oh, I wish we had more money. I wish we had. No, the money's out right now. There's an incredible amount of money for tribes and projects and entrepreneurs. And it's just a way, like, who do I go talk to? How do I access it? And I think that's where organizations like Rainforest, NMCC, the Indian Chamber of Commerce, AIBE, if they could collectively come together and have a day like what you're talking about, like you did with Santa Clara at various, tribal places, I think it would probably work very well, because then they would have everything right there. And I don't know about the state and feds. To me, I would like to see the state and federal money, all the stuff, the USDA, the housing, all of these guys funnel money into local community programs such as Rainforest and NMCC, to be able, because they have the access and the way to get into the tribal communities. And I think sometimes trying to work with those big organizations is daunting, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do all this paperwork. I don't want to do it this way. But if they do work with like Rainforest, not to be so strict on how that money is to be used. Let Rainforest determine the best use of that money. If it's to build a house, let Rainforest say, okay, how best are we going to help Isleta Pueblo build homes? Well, you ask Isleta, how is the best way we can get your homes? Do they need down payment assistance? Do they need, access to capital? Do they need a bank to finance them? How do we do this? So we don't want, it's nice to have HUD. It's nice to have them be there, but don't put so many restrictions on that money. I mean, a perfect example, I'll tell you, the CDC, they work with the local epicenter here in Albuquerque through the Indian Health Board. Well, CDC gives them the money, and they determine how they're going to use it. They reach out to the Pueblos, and they determine how best are you going to have a healthy community. They say, well, we want to do this and this. Okay, we'll fund you in that way. But they have people that are there that say, okay, what they're doing does meet what CDC wants to do, and this is how we're going to report it. You don't have the tribe trying to report what CDC wants them to do it. You have somebody else that has the expertise, the time
like
to do it.
Making those like partnerships
There you
of
go.
like organizations like NMCC or Rainforest, AIBE, that can maybe provide the capacity and that like administrative support. But ultimately the tribes are the ones who receive the funds and the projects.
The tribe or the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So you have a bunch of entrepreneurs that want to, I don't know, become desktop support people. You help them do that.
Yeah.
I mean, just little things like that, where if somebody says, I can do desktop support for my tribe, yeah, you can. You probably can. Because they have the central, the administration taking care of with their technical people, but you got the whole community that needs technical support. How are they getting it? Start a business.
Yeah, fill that need.
Fill that need. It's just looking at your community as a whole, and what do you like to do? What is it that you want? And I think that's another thing too. Entrepreneurs should do what they like to do, not what they think that there's money to be made. I mean, it's nice to make the money. It's nice to be able to do it in that fashion, but do something you're passionate about. Do something that kicks you out of bed in the morning that you want to go do, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So one of my final questions that I have for you, which you've kind of already touched on, but
Mhm.
if someone is interested in pursuing entrepreneurship, but they haven't taken the leap yet to start, what is one piece of advice that you would give them, or like any words of wisdom or encouragement, or even hard truths?
That whatever you want to do may not work.
Mm,
Whatever business, an idea, or need that you're thinking about doing or trying to address within a community may not work right now.
yeah, or right away.
Right away. It may need some time to percolate, gather your resources, understanding more about what it is you want to do, how you want to do it. And then, just like I just said, realizing your resources. And what I mean by that is understanding within your own self what it is. You're making sure your checking account, your savings are okay, making sure you're okay. A lot of times you're not okay to really go on this venture, on this path, because you need to be healthy. You have to be good in your mind, because it's going to take a lot of energy to go down this road. And if you got issues going on, you've got things you need to deal with them. Make sure you're okay there, because the more energy and time you're taking away from I'm going to call it your relationship with your business. It's like any other relationship. You don't take the time to talk with it. You don't take the time to care for it. It's not going to grow. It's going to crumble. It's going to go away. So you really look at what you're doing as a relationship. And when I go back to the realizing your resources, also, who's going to help you out? Say you're a single mom and you have kids in school. Who's going to pick up the kids? Who's going to take them to practice? Who's going to, clothe them? Who's going to feed them? Because a lot of times you're going to be running around, say taking your product to a store, or making the product, or packaging it, or going to pick up more ingredients to do something, or harvesting something. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time management. And if you don't have your resources, or understanding your resources, it just compounds everything. It gets you frustrated. It gets you, like, I don't want to do this. I can't do it, but you can do it. You just need to be a very good time manager, if you will, and rely on your family, your husband, your wife, cousins, aunts, uncles. If you really tell them what it is you want, why you want to do it, and how much it means to you, they will step up and help you. They can help you for an hour here, 2 hours there, or help you harvest, or do something. And that's how that community is really advantageous in the native community to start a business, because you have those resources that non-natives don't have, because a lot of times they're in another state, their families back someplace else, and they don't have it, so they have to do it on their own. Where tribal communities, they're all right there, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, and even your buddies and friends, they're there. And they want you to succeed. They want to see you happy. Because they want to come over and eat your barbecue at the end of the week.
Yeah.
Because once you start, doing well, you're going to be able to have barbecues, and they can come over and enjoy. So everybody wins once an entrepreneur really starts doing well and addressing the needs.
Yeah. Find that support network.
Yes, it's so important.
It kind of, and I meant to like mention this thought earlier that I had, but about what you were talking about, with like what the state, what New Mexico could do better, regarding like housing, infrastructure, broadband. It made me think, really environment matters, and again, tying back to the rainforest, you need the right environment for it to be able, for your business to be able to grow, for your entrepreneurial ecosystem and community. So I think just from those, what you mentioned before, um, putting yourself in the right environment,
Mm-hmm.
but then also like for UNM Rainforest Innovations, for other organizations, for tribes, for the state, it's important for us to help create that environment
Mm-hmm.
where seeds that are planted can grow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, it came to me when you were just talking about that earlier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely true. Yes, and it's sad, but there are organizations out there, like I mentioned, and our Native Community Capital is one. They're out there
Mhm.
trying to do housing. Kelly Cable up north, they're doing a big thing on broadband up at the Pueblos in that area. And there's money. I mean, federal government dumped a bunch of money into these various departments to address the needs. But a lot of times it's just like, how do we get that money?
It's
Who
the
do we go get it? How do we,
And then
access
if we
it?
get it, how do we use it?
How do we use it?
How
Yeah.
do we develop the right funnels or programming
Mm-hmm.
to um, execute, the goals that we have for that money? I think
Yes.
New Mexico as a whole has that capacity issue sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And I think the tribal leaderships in New Mexico, they have a fairly good relationship with the state of New Mexico, and it's nice that they have the what is it, the Department of Indian Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that one, which is a cabinet secretary position. So they have that direct communication with the governor,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think they have the resources there, and they utilize them very well.
Mm-hmm.
And the state does look to help, the Pueblo tribes and nations as best they can, given their parameters on their restrictions also. Uh, but yeah, I think it's very much doable. It's optimistic out there. That's the other thing. You need to stay optimistic. You have to don't look at everything, as half empty.
Yeah,
And
be a
it's really,
half full type of
yeah.
person.
And then the other one too, I tell some of the entrepreneurs is like, be careful when you see the light coming at the end of the tunnel because it may be a train coming the other way. I said, so that's where you're planning
That's
and
true.
you're what you're doing and you have a good idea. I said, because that light may be a train, so just be careful. Plan, think.
Well, thank you for your time and for your words and for sharing
Mm-hmm.
some of your thoughts and experiences with us today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the people listening appreciate it as
Mm-hmm.
well. Before we get off, if anyone wants to connect with you,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through your role at NMCC or through Rainstorm Consulting,
Mm-hmm.
how can they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me online. I have a website, rainstorm-consulting.com, and it has all my contact information there. Yeah, I think that would be the best way to do it. Or give me a call directly, 505-699-1990.
Okay.
And before we go, I just wanted to mention that the going back a while, you asked a question about how I got into it, but I wanted to thank a few people, and some of them are no longer with us, some tribal leaders like Herman Agoyo. He was a former governor there at Ohkay Owingeh, and then there was also Joe Garcia, who passed away not too long ago, and Rick Vigil from Tesuque. They wonderful men. I've listened to them since I was growing up, and they're wonderful. And currently, some of the guys like Regis Pecos, are just an amazing orator. He's speaks wonderful, and then my conversations I've had with Secretary Holland. A lot of times I worked with her way back when on a project that she had. On a business project. I'm not going to say what it was. She'll be mad at me. Individuals that are just amazing out there, and just trying to keep them going and encourage them. Availing my resources to them, and just great.
I think that just speaks to what you had mentioned before, about the support network. And, finding those people who you can work with and towards a similar goal, and creating that ecosystem of strategic partnerships and just relationships in general, I think is valuable for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, I gotta really thank Governor Quancello too up at Picary's Pueblo. If it wasn't his vision and his determination to do a lot of what we accomplished here at the Pueblo, I don't think I would have gotten the experience and knowledge that I have today in bringing it all together and really helping me have the courage and the capacity to be able to speak on a lot of these things. And he encouraged me. He beat me upside the head once in a while because I didn't do something or forgot to do it, and which is all good because it's all a learning experience. I mean, because you can't go to college and get a degree in tribal administration as a tribal administrator. I mean, you can get some of them in there, but it's not really a taught
You have to
CEO
learn by
position.
experience, right?
Yes.
And mentorship.
Mentorship is another one, yes.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate having you here and then also having you as part of our network and our ecosystem because I think you're doing a lot of really good work for our Native American entrepreneurs, but also just for the state of New Mexico as a whole. So, thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Appreciate it.
Great.